Well, studios today have been relocated for the day to the Civil Rights Museum. Two museums. We're in the auditorium adjacent between the museums. It's all set up for Empower Mississippi's Unleash Mississippi event. And joining us now, once again, Forest Thigpen, Senior Advisor of Empower Mississippi and the Sheriff of Rankin County, Sheriff Bryan Bailey. Sheriff, thanks for coming on today, sir. Good to see you.
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I know you have been quite innovative in your approach to law enforcement. That doesn't mean by any means that you have been and your deputies and your team have been easy on crime. In fact, just the opposite. But the object is to take those who commit crimes and arrest them and charge them and incarcerate them, but rehabilitate them so that when they return and they ultimately get out of jail, that they return to society and they're productive members and they don't go back to committing crime again.
Yes, sir. God opened my eyes when I was first elected, and said the preacher was doing a sermon. He said, "Sin is sin." And it was on that day I realized there's no difference between me and an inmate in the Rankin County Jail in God's eyes. And after hearing some of their stories, building relationships with them, there's a lot of good people in jail that just made a mistake and need a second chance.
Yeah. So how do you get to their hearts? Because you got to get to their heart and their mind and change things around. Something caused them to commit these crimes, and I know you've done an excellent job, you and your team, of breaking through to these people so that you don't see them again. That's the goal.
Yes, sir. And most of the ones in our program are drugs or drug related. And I can tell you that, for instance, when we started our female trustee program, we have a female, we call it the green team, that cleans all the county buildings and things like that. They work at the Law Enforcement Academy, several different locations. The first 10 that Christy and I talked to, we were going around the table and I was finding out what everybody's charge was, and 8 of the 10 were drugs or drug-related charges. And by the end of the meeting with them, I learned that the 8 that were on drugs had been sexually abused as a child, and it turned to drugs to cover that pain. So I'm sitting there looking, I have 8 sexual assault victims in here, not drug heads.
Yeah.
So that's what they need the help with, is how to deal with that hurt that they had when they were younger. That's what I need to get to, is that hurt, so they don't turn to the drugs when they get out.
Yeah, I got you. And it makes perfect sense. So you truly are drilling down to what we call the so-called root cause. You hear that tossed around as a favorite talking point of politicians, Forrest, but when it comes down to it, it just seems like it's empty rhetoric.
It is. And the approaches that we take to crime need to be unique to the person that you're treating. That doesn't mean we're never saying that if somebody commits a crime that they don't need to face some consequences for it. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is based on their activity, just like what the sheriff just described, their background, that's just the reality of the things that these people have been through. And so it's not just being soft on crime or being liberal to think that we need to care about these people, especially ones that have been through what he just described.
Yeah. We hear a lot of complaints from the public in general, Sheriff, that, it's the same pool of criminals that go out and commit the crimes. We arrest them, we lock them up for a short period of time, we let them go, and they go back to committing those same crimes. And so it's recidivism is the term to describe that, of course, and lots of complaints about that. They just feel like that the law enforcement, the justice system in general, just isn't solving the problem. But you've taken a different approach on that, and I think you've produced results in that area.
Yes, sir, we're trying to, and we as a society, and me in law enforcement, I've done the same thing. We take someone, lock them up. We don't give them any training, any counseling skills, anything. We just lock them up, push them right back on the street, and say good luck. You know, and it's until I was elected sheriff, I didn't know. I thought everybody's parents taught them things. And for instance, banks. You would be amazed at people that have never, ever, 40, 50-year-old men have never had a checking account or savings account. They don't trust banks. They don't use banks. It's just so many things. So that's where we started coming up with a curriculum for our trustee program of different classes that that they must take to be in our program.
Yeah. And in fact, I think statistically, if I'm not mistaken, Forrest, Mississippi is the most underbanked state in the country.
Yeah, we are. And So that's another aspect of what feeds into the uncertainty of people, the lack of trust, not knowing who you can trust, and it leads to all types of things. Again, not that we're excusing behavior, but just understanding the reality of where we come from. And so what the sheriff has also done, they started last year as a work release program that treats people differently.
Yeah. And so we often hear, in fact, even this morning, I read an account from a group that is contributing heavily to Stacey Abrams' campaign over in Georgia that is calling for complete dismantling of law enforcement as well as incarceration. They think that's the solution. But Sheriff, I think there's a misconception, at least from the left, about law enforcement and how it approaches arresting people when they commit crimes, and then how they get processed through the justice system. And there's I think a misconception out there that there's racial bias involved in that. But you and I have talked about this before. Is that what's going on in Rankin County and what you see in other jurisdictions?
No, sir. Right's right and wrong's wrong. You know, crime is crime. And the people of Rankin County want a safe place to live and raise their families, and that's what we're going to give them. Now, again, once we arrest these people and put them in jail, we need to rethink. Our whole state needs to rethink, how we're, preparing these people to return back into society. And that's on us. And that's something we have to invest in. We need to spend more money on. Yeah. But I don't think that there's anyone in Rankin County that would disagree that, people need second chances, sometimes a third chance.
Sure.
And that's what we're going to do. But, I mean, people want firm, fair law enforcement, and that's what, again, as long as I'm sheriff, that's what they're going to get in Rankin County.
Is there anything in particular, Sheriff, that you feel like you could use from our legislature at the state level, from a law perspective, that would enhance your ability to do your job?
I have a great delegation from Rankin County. They listen to me. They talk to me every session, and I've made a great relationship with Senator Juan Barnett, and it was a fight to get this work release program passed. Yeah. Because initially I was compared by some to Brubaker, that I was going to work these inmates for money. And that's why my whole time on this work release program is that I don't want any of the money. The sheriff's office, Rankin County, will not, the inmate keeps all the money. So there's a few little things that can be tweaked, but you got to be careful what you ask for, because I wanted this work release program, and I had no idea of the roadblocks that were ahead when I asked for this.
Do you think that's a model for other jurisdictions as well?
And other jurisdictions think the same thing, because last year when the legislature approved this program for Sheriff Bailey, he was the only one they approved it for. And after a year, others thought, that's a really good idea. I want to do that too. And the legislature extended his program. Initially, they only passed it for 1 year, just to kind of feel it out. Yeah. So then this year the legislature extended his program, and then they added a couple of other counties to it. So it is experimental. It's very carefully and wisely done in the way. I mean, he said the money goes back to the inmates, but it has purpose. It's not just like it goes into their bank account and they can do whatever they want. Yeah. And so that's one of the approaches that we have to look at to figure out how to do things differently, instead of just locking them up and then releasing them back to where they came from.
What's the feedback you get from employers, Sheriff?
Let me tell you something. Rankin County is just an amazing county. I have 10 times more jobs available than I have inmates that can work. Wow. I mean, people are calling me weekly wanting inmates, and again, I'm not taking in the inmates' money, so it's a little bit of a burden getting them to and from work, because I will not let an inmate drive. But the way this program is working is they get the job the last year of their sentence. The first 6 months they can work part-time. The last 6 months they can work full-time. Okay. And I don't touch any of their money, but they have to do an accounting every month to Christie at the sheriff's office. Yeah. They have to save 50% of everything they make. 25% goes towards fines and restitution, and they can blow 25%. Okay. And like I say, right now in the program, we've had like 16, because of COVID, really messed me up. But 16 since we started it, and I got her to add up the numbers today. So these 15 inmates have made a total of $144,000, and right now in their savings account they have $72,000.
That's awesome.
combined.
That's outstanding.
So that's huge when they step out.
That is
of jail.
outstanding.
Right, because then they can pay deposits on rent.
Yeah.
They can buy a car to be able to get to work.
Yeah,
You know,
not just dumped on the street.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sheriff, appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Forrest, thank you as well. Appreciate it. We got Russ Latino, the president of